Late on a Tuesday night in our cramped Long Beach apartment, I sat alone at the kitchen table under a single lamp that barely pushed back the darkness. The pile of unopened bills in front of me seemed to grow taller every time I blinked. Red letters, final notices, words that felt like accusations. That's when my 8-year-old daughter Ava appeared in the doorway, her small frame wrapped in her favorite purple pajamas that were getting too short in the sleeves. Her dark eyes found mine in the dim light. "Mom?" Her voice was so soft, so careful. Can we maybe buy some art supplies? Just the cheap ones from the dollar store?" My stomach clenched into a fist. I didn't have to say no. She saw it in my face before I could form the words. That silence, that horrible, heavy silence, told her everything. Her shoulders dropped just slightly and she whispered, "It's okay, Mom. I don't really need them." But she did need them. I knew she did. She turned and walked back to the bedroom she shared with her 6-year-old brother, Malik, and I sat there feeling like the walls were closing in. That moment, right there, that was when I understood something I'd been too scared to admit. My children had stopped asking for things, not because they didn't want anything, not because they'd suddenly become mature beyond their years. They stopped asking because they knew we couldn't afford it. They stopped asking because they'd heard the fights. They stopped asking because every request felt like a burden they were placing on parents who were already breaking. And that hurt worse than any empty bank account ever could. My name is Esther Brown. I'm 35 years old, and this is the story of how poverty almost destroyed my family, and how we clawed our way back with nothing but honesty, discipline, and the wisdom that only comes from suffering. If you've ever laid awake at night wondering how you'll pay rent, if you've ever felt your marriage cracking under financial pressure, if you've ever seen your children learn to want less because they love you too much to ask for more, this story is for you. Because what I'm about to share isn't about getting rich quick or finding some magic solution. This is about survival. This is about the real protection that saved my family when everything else was falling apart. And I promise you, by the end of this story, you'll understand why the moment my children stopped asking was both the lowest point of my life and the beginning of our salvation. My husband Jason is 38. When we met 15 years ago in South Central LA, he was working steady construction, and I was just finishing my training as a hospital custodian. We weren't rich, but we were making it. We had dreams. We moved to Long Beach thinking it would be better for raising kids. More affordable than LA proper, close enough to family, far enough to feel like a fresh start. We had Ava first, then Malik 2 years later. Those early years, God, those early years felt possible. Hard, but possible. Jason's construction work was steady then. He'd leave sunrise before, come home dusty and tired, but there was always a paycheck. I worked the evening shift at Long Beach Memorial Medical Center, cleaning rooms, scrubbing floors, and making sure every surface gleamed. The work was invisible, thankless, but it was honest. It was ours. But then, about 18 months ago, everything started to shift. The construction project Jason was on, a big commercial development near the port, wrapped up early. The contractor promised there'd be another job right after, but weeks turned into months. Jason started doing day labor, standing outside Home Depot at dawn with dozens of other men, hoping someone would need an extra pair of hands. Some days he gets to work, some days he didn't. My hospital salary barely covered rent, $1,500 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment that was supposed to be temporary but had become permanent. Add utilities, the car payment on our aging Honda, groceries, the kids' school supplies, all added up faster than money ever came in. And then there was the medical bill. Last year, Jason hurt his back on a job site. Nothing major, they said, just a pulled muscle. But the pain didn't go away, so we went to urgent care. No insurance. We'd let it lapse 6 months earlier because we couldn't afford the premiums. That one visit, the x-rays, the prescriptions, and the follow-up, it cost us $3,200. Money we didn't have. We put it on credit cards. Then we couldn't pay for the credit cards. The interest piled up like snow in a place that never sees winter. Before we knew it, that one medical emergency had become $8,000 of debt, hanging over us like a storm cloud. I tried picking up extra shifts, but the hospital was cutting hours for custodial staff, bringing in a cheaper outside contractor. I was lucky to keep my regular shifts, let alone get overtime. Jason kept hustling. He'd take any work, roofing, painting, hauling trash, whatever. But without steady income, we were always 3 steps behind. We paid rent late, juggled which bills got paid each month, avoided phone calls from creditors whose numbers we'd learned to recognize. And through it all, we smiled at the kids. We pretended everything was fine. Children know more than we think. Research shows that kids born into poverty are more likely to misbehave and act out tantrums, teasing or fighting as stress builds. But before they act out, they watch. They listen. They absorb every tension, every whispered argument, every heavy silence. Ava started it first. She'd always loved drawing. Her teacher said she had real talent, that she could see things in ways other kids couldn't. For her birthday, she'd asked for a proper sketch pad and some good colored pencils. Nothing expensive, maybe $20 worth. But her birthday came during a month when we'd had to choose between the electric bill and groceries. We chose groceries. The electric company gave us a grace period, but there was no grace period on a little girl's hopes. I told her we'd get the art supplies next month. She nodded, said it was okay, said she could wait. Next month is coming. Different crises, same result. She stopped asking. Instead, she started using the back of school worksheets, drawing in the margins of homework papers. She'd collect the free promotional pencils Jason would bring home from hardware stores. She made do, and watching her make do, watching her carefully ration her joy to protect my feelings, that broke something in me. Malik was different. At 6 years old, he didn't have Ava's careful awareness. He'd ask for things, a toy he saw at Target, a Happy Meal when we drove past McDonald's, a new soccer ball because he was flat. Each time, Jason or I would say, "Not today," or "maybe later," or find some gentle way to say no. The tantrums started around then. Not because he was spoiled, but because of frustration and confusion he had to go somewhere. He was too young to understand why his parents, who were supposed to provide, suddenly couldn't. Too young to know that "I can't afford it" meant anything beyond "I don't love you enough." One night, he screamed at me in the grocery store because I wouldn't buy the cereal he wanted. The good cereal, the kind with the cartoon character on the box. I'd said no because it cost $2 more than the store brand, and I was counting every dollar to make sure we'd have enough to get through the week. He screamed. People stared. I felt my face burning with shame. Later that night, after I'd got the kids to bed, Jason found me crying in the bathroom. Not soft tears, ugly, gut-wrenching sobs that I'd been holding back for months. "I can't do this," I told him. "I can't keep telling our kids no. I can't keep watching them want things and knowing I can't give it to them. What kind of mother am I?" Jason held me, but he didn't have answers, because he was asking himself the same questions about being a father. Financial stress biases every interaction. Researchers warn that under money strain, partners might interpret each other's actions as criticism. We were living that reality. We'd put on what the experts call dark-tinted glasses, seeing threats and judgment in each other's words, even when none was intended. The fights started small. Jason would come home from a day of no work, exhausted from standing in the sun for hours, waiting for someone to hire him. I'd be tired from scrubbing hospital floors on my hands and knees. One of us would mention money. "We need to pay the water bill. The car insurance is due. Did you see this late fee?" And the other would snap. "I'm trying, Esther. What do you want me to do?" "I want you to figure something out. I can't carry this alone." "You think I'm not carrying it? You think I don't feel it every single day?" Back and forth. Words chosen to wound because our own wounds were too raw. We'd lower our voices so the kids wouldn't hear, but they heard anyway. Kids always hear. The distance grew slowly, the way ice forms on a lake, first just at the edges, then creeping inward until there's a solid barrier where there used to be warmth. Jason started sleeping on the couch some nights, saying he didn't want to wake me when he came home late from whatever evening-side job he'd scrounged up. But I knew better. The physical distance matched the emotional gap that had opened between us. We stared at each other, and despite everything, we started laughing. Not happy laughter, but the kind that comes when things are so absurd you can't do anything else. "We're both killing ourselves and hiding it from each other," Jason said. "We're idiots. Complete idiots." The laughter faded, but something had shifted. We'd been carrying our burdens separately, ashamed to share them, afraid of adding to each other's pain. But the hiding had only made everything worse. "No more secrets," I said. "Whatever we do from here, we do it together. We tell each other everything, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." He nodded. "No more secrets." We spent the next 2 hours going through my notes together, really talking for the first time in months, not arguing about whose fault things were or who wasn't doing enough, just problem solving, planning, being a team again. Jason agreed to apply for food assistance with me. He agreed that I should get the health insurance through work, even if it meant less take-home pay in the short term. He agreed to contact the medical billing department about our old emergency room debt. I agreed that we'd start looking into basic life insurance, nothing fancy, just enough to cover funeral costs and a bit extra if something happened to either of us. I agreed to research disability insurance through Jason's old union, which still had some protection for former members. We made a budget together, on paper, with actual numbers, income on one side, expenses on the other, and the painful gap between them is clearly visible. "We need $1,300 more a month just to break even," Jason said, staring at the numbers. "So we need to either earn more or spend less. We can't spend much less. We're already bare bones." He was right. Our rent was cheap for the area. We didn't have cable or streaming services. Our phone plans were the cheapest available. We shopped at discount grocery stores and bought generic everything. There wasn't much left to cut. "Then we focus on earning more," I said. "And we're smart about it. We don't burn ourselves out working 3 jobs each. We're strategic. We look for 1 or 2 opportunities that actually move the needle." "Like what?" "I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out. Together." That weekend, we sat down with Ava and Malik, not to burden them with adult problems, but to be honest in an age-appropriate way. "We need to talk to you guys about something important," I started. We were all sitting in the living room, the 4 of us, like we used to do before everything fell apart. Ava's eyes went wide. "Are you getting divorced?" The question hit like a punch. "No," Jason said firmly. "No, we're not getting divorced. But we do need to talk about why things have been hard lately." "Is it about money?" Malik asked. 6 years old and already money conscious. "Yeah, it's about money," I said. "Dad and I have been having a hard time making enough money to pay for everything we need. And we know you guys have noticed things being different." "Like you're fighting," Ava said quietly. "Like us fighting," I acknowledged. "And we're sorry about that. We're working on doing better." "Are we poor?" Malik asked. The word hung in the air, sharp and uncomfortable. Jason and I looked at each other. How do you answer that honestly without scaring your children? "We're struggling right now," Jason said carefully. "Money is tight, but we're working on a plan to make things better." "That's why you're always tired, Mom," Ava said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah, baby, that's why." "I'm sorry," she whispered. My heart broke. "Why are you sorry?" "Because we cost money. If you didn't have to buy us stuff, you'd have more money." I pulled her into my arms, held her tight. "Listen to me very carefully. You and your brother are the best things that ever happened to us. We don't regret one single penny we've spent on you. Not one. This situation isn't your fault and you don't need to apologize for existing, okay?" She nodded against my shoulder, but I could feel her uncertainty. "And another thing," I continued, pulling back to look at both kids. "If you need something, really need something, you can ask us. Even if money is tight, you can ask. We might have to say no sometimes or say not right now, but you don't have to stop asking. You don't have to pretend you don't want things to protect our feelings." "But you can't afford things," Ava said logically. "Sometimes we can't," Jason agreed, "but sometimes we can, and we'd rather know what you need than have you hiding it." Malik climbed into Jason's lap, something he hadn't done in weeks. "Can we have spaghetti for dinner?" he asked. "The kind of meat sauce?" Such a simple request. 6 months ago, we wouldn't have thought twice about it. "Yeah, buddy," Jason said, his voice thick with emotion. "We can do spaghetti with meat sauce." That evening, we made dinner together, all 4 of us in our tiny kitchen, bumping into each other, laughing when Malik got sauce on his shirt. It was the first time in months that our apartment felt like a home instead of just a place where we were all trapped together. The problems hadn't gone away. We still owed money we didn't have. We still faced potential eviction. We still had to figure out how to bridge that $1,300 monthly gap. But we were facing it as a family again, together, and that made all the difference. On Monday, I went to Human Resources at the hospital and enrolled in health insurance. The woman processing my paperwork was sympathetic when I explained I'd gone without coverage for so long because of cost. "You're not alone," she said. "A lot of our staff have done the same thing, but you're making the right choice now." The premium would take $140 out of my bi-weekly paycheck, money we desperately needed for other things. But I'd done the math. One more medical emergency without insurance, and we'd be completely destroyed. The plan had a $3,000 family deductible, which seemed impossibly high, but it also had an out-of-pocket maximum of $8,000. If something catastrophic happened, if someone got cancer or needed surgery or had a terrible accident, the most we'd owe in 1 year was $8,000. Still a lot, but not infinite, not bankruptcy. That same day, I applied for SNAP benefits online. The application was long and invasive. They wanted to know everything about our finances, our assets, our lives. But I pushed through the shame and filled it out honestly. We qualified for $460 a month in food assistance. $460. That was a week and a half of groceries for our family. That was meat in our spaghetti. That was fresh fruit for the kids. That was one less thing we had to scrape together every month. I cried when I got the approval notice. Not sad tears, relieved tears, grateful tears. We weren't going to solve all our problems with food stamps, but we were going to eat, reliably, without stress. Jason called the hospital billing department about our old emergency room debt. He was terrified they'd demand full payment immediately, but the woman he spoke with was understanding. "We can set up a payment plan," she said. "How much can you afford per month?" "Maybe $50, Jason said hesitantly, waiting for her to laugh at such a small amount. "That works. We'll put you on a $50 monthly payment plan. As long as you make the payments on time, we won't send it to collections." $8,000 of debt, managed with $50 a month. It would take years to pay off, but it was possible. It was a path forward. These weren't dramatic victories. There was no moment when all our problems vanished. But each small step made us a little less vulnerable, a little more stable. I spent evenings researching insurance options, not the expensive whole-life policies that aggressive salespeople tried to sell, but simple, straightforward protections. Term life insurance, I learned, was cheap when you were young and healthy. For less than $40 a month, Jason and I could each have $250,000 policies. If something happened to either of us, the other wouldn't have to worry about funeral costs, wouldn't lose the apartment, and wouldn't be immediately thrown into a worse crisis. $250,000 sounds like a fortune when you're poor. But I ran the numbers. It would cover our debt, pay off the remaining car loan, and provide maybe 2 years of living expenses. Not generational wealth, but breathing room. Time to grieve and rebuild without also drowning. The policies had exclusions I needed to understand. Suicide clauses in the first 2 years. Requirements for truthful health disclosures. But they were straightforward. Pay your premium, don't lie on the application, and your family is protected. I also looked into disability insurance. Jason's old union still offered coverage to former members. It wasn't great, but it was something. For $60 a month, he could get a policy that would pay 60% of his average income if he became unable to work due to injury or illness. 60% didn't sound like much, but it was the difference between losing everything and barely hanging on. Your income is your financial lifeblood. That's why disability insurance is so vital. It's a financial safety net that protects you when an injury prevents you from working. The policy had waiting periods and benefit limits. It wouldn't cover pre-existing conditions in the first year, but it was better than nothing, better than being one accident away from complete destruction. I learned about waiver of premium riders, features you could add that meant if you became disabled, you wouldn't have to keep paying premiums. The insurance would continue without payments during the event of a disability. That made sense to me. If you're too sick to work, you shouldn't also have to pay to keep your protection active. None of this was exciting. It was boring, practical, unsexy wisdom. But it was armor. It was protection against a world that would cheerfully destroy us if we gave it the chance. With Jason's help, I created a real budget. Not wishful thinking, but actual numbers based on reality. Income, monthly average. My hospital salary, $2,100. My gas station job, 4 nights week, $120. Jason's day labor, average, $800. Food assistance, $460, not cash, but freed up money. Total, $4,020 necessary expenses. Rent, $2,500. Utilities, electric, water, gas, $180. Car payment, $240. Car insurance, $110. Gas for car, $200. Health insurance, $280 month. Life insurance, both of us, $38 month. Phone, cheap family plan, $80. Household supplies, toiletries, $60. Minimal entertainment emergency buffer, $100 total, $2,788. Debt payments, medical bill payment plan, $50. Credit card minimums, $180 total debt payments, $230 food. Now with SNAP. SNAP covers, $460. Additional food purchases needed, $100 total food, $100 out of pocket, monthly balance, $4,020, $2,888, $230, $109 remaining. For the first time in a year, we had positive numbers. Not a lot, but positive. That $902 could cover unexpected expenses, could slowly pay down debt beyond minimums, could, if we were disciplined, go into emergency savings. We weren't rich. We weren't even comfortable. But we weren't drowning anymore. The key was my gas station job. I hated it. Hated the overnight hours. Hated how exhausted it made me. Hated being away from my family. But that $1,120 a month was the difference between barely surviving and actually having a path forward. I don't want you to kill yourself working 2 jobs forever, Jason said when we reviewed the budget together. It's not forever. It's just until we're more stable. Until you get steady work again or we find another solution. I feel like shit that you have to do this. Don't. We're a team, remember? No more secrets, no more shame. We do what we have to do. In December, 2 things happened that changed our trajectory. First, Jason got a call from a construction supervisor he'd worked with before. They were starting a big commercial project in Carson, and they needed experienced workers. 40 hours a week guaranteed, union-scale wages, benefits after 90 days. The pay was $28 an hour. That was $4,480 a month before taxes, probably close to $3,400 take home. Combined with my hospital job, we'd have steady income of $5,500 a month, real, reliable money. Jason started the job in early January. On the first payday, he came home and just handed me his check. We stood in the kitchen looking at it together, $1,378 for 1 week of work. "This is real," he said, his voice shaking. "This is actually happening." We didn't go crazy. We didn't celebrate by spending money we still needed, but we allowed ourselves to feel hope. Actual, genuine hope that we might be okay. The second thing that happened was that I found a new daytime job. The hospital system was opening a new outpatient clinic, and they needed administrative staff. It was more money than custodial work, $16 an hour instead of $13, and better hours. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Regular schedule, no overnight shifts. I could quit the gas station job. I could sleep for normal hours. I could see my children in the evenings again. I almost cried during the interview. The hiring manager probably thought I was crazy, but she offered me the job anyway. By mid-January, our financial picture looked completely different. New income. My new clinic job, $2,560 month. Jason's construction job, $3,400 month total steady income, $1,560 month. We still had debt. We still had to be careful, but we had breathing room, real, actual breathing room. For the first time in over a year, I allowed myself to think about the future beyond just surviving the next month. With stable income finally established, we made protecting that income the priority. Jason's new construction job came with benefits, including a decent disability insurance policy through the union. It would cover 70% of his wages if he couldn't work due to injury, better than the private policy we'd been looking at. We also signed up for critical illness insurance through his employer. It costs $32 a month, and it would pay a lump sum of $25,000 if either of us was diagnosed with cancer, had a heart attack, or suffered a stroke. $25,000 might not sound like much to wealthy people, but for us, it meant we wouldn't immediately lose everything if one of us got seriously sick. Because a critical illness and its treatment can quickly add up, this insurance pays you a lump sum amount upon a covered diagnosis. So, you can focus on recuperation. We could pay the mortgage, buy groceries, and cover the bills while we focused on recovery instead of financial destruction. We kept our term life insurance policies. With Jason's steady income now, $40 a month was manageable, and peace of mind was worth it. If something happened to either of us, our family would be protected. Life insurance offers a family significant peace of mind by helping replace income if the worst happens. We even added riders for inflation protection. I'd learned that insurance benefits could lose value over time as costs rose. The inflation protection clause meant our coverage would increase each year slightly to keep pace with rising costs. It cost a bit more, but it meant the protection we bought today wouldn't become inadequate in 10 years. These weren't exciting decisions. They were boring, responsible choices that people with money made automatically. But for us, they were revolutionary. They meant we were thinking beyond next month. We were building stability that could withstand shocks. In February, we got our tax refund, $3,200. In the past, we would have used it all to catch up on debt. But we'd learned a different approach. We split it. 50% to debt, 50% to savings. $1,600 went to paying down the highest interest credit card. $1,600 went into a savings account we opened specifically for emergencies. That savings account felt like a miracle. We had money set aside. Not much, just $1,600, but it was ours, untouched, waiting for the next crisis. And the next crisis came, as it always does. In March, our car's transmission started failing. The repair estimate was $2,000, money we didn't have in our regular budget. In the past, this would have destroyed us. We would have panicked, taken out a predatory loan, maybe lost the car entirely. But this time, we had the emergency fund. We pulled $1,500 from savings, combined it with $500 from our monthly budget surplus, and paid for the repair in full. No loans, no interest, no desperate scrambles. Then we started rebuilding the savings. Every month we put $100 to $200 back into the emergency fund, slowly returning it to where it had been. Even a small emergency fund provides some financial security when living paycheck to paycheck. That $1,600 was our shield against the chaos that had nearly destroyed us before. By summer, we'd paid off the medical bill completely. $8,000 of debt gone. We still had credit card debt, but we were making progress, real, measurable progress. More importantly, we'd changed how we thought about money and protection. We refused to apply for assistance because we thought it was shameful. That pride cost us, in stress, in hunger, in damage to our health and our marriage. Accepting help wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. Buying life insurance, disability insurance, health insurance, these weren't just financial products. They were how we loved our family, even in our absence. They were how we protected the people we cared about from the disasters we couldn't prevent. That savings account saved our car, yes, but it also saved our peace of mind. It saved us from panic. It saved us from making desperate decisions that would have hurt us long term. Every quick fix we'd considered, payday loans, working overseas scams, unsustainable multiple jobs, would have made things worse. The only path forward was slow, boring, disciplined improvement. When we finally stopped hiding our struggles from each other, when we became a team instead of two people drowning separately, everything changed. We weren't stronger because we had more money. We had more money because we became stronger. One evening in June, after the kids were asleep, Jason and I sat on our balcony in the warm summer air. "You know what I realized?" he said quietly. "What?" "That moment when Ava stopped asking for art supplies, when you saw her give up on wanting things, that was actually the moment we started fixing this. How do you figure?" "Because you couldn't ignore it anymore. Neither of us could. We'd been pretending we were okay, that if we just worked harder or tried longer, it would magically get better. But seeing our kids shrink themselves to fit our poverty, that forced us to be honest." He was right. At that moment, something had broken in me, but it had also awakened something, a refusal to accept that this was how our lives had to be. "I bought her art supplies yesterday," I said. "Real ones. A good sketchbook and a set of colored pencils from the art store. Spent $40. And she cried. Happy tears, but she cried. She didn't even open them at first. She just held the bag and stared at it like she couldn't believe it was real." Jason reached over and took my hand, something we did naturally now, touching each other with affection instead of barely connecting in our shared misery. "We're going to be okay," he said. "Yeah, we are." It's been 2 years since that night when Ava asked about art supplies, and I realized my children had stopped asking. Today, Ava is 10. She's in an after-school art program. Her drawings cover our refrigerator, our walls, and every surface in our apartment. She wants things again, not extravagant things, but the normal desires of a child who believes her parents can provide. Malik is 8. He plays soccer in a rec league. He still has his sensitive, emotional nature, but he's not acting out anymore. He knows his parents fight sometimes, but he also knows we're solid. He's not afraid we're leaving. Jason has been in the same construction job for 2 years. He's up for a supervisor position next month. More money, more responsibility, more stability. He's proud of his work again, not because it makes him rich, but because it provides his family with dignity. I've been promoted twice at the clinic. I'm now an office manager making $21 an hour. It's not a fortune, but combined with Jason's income, we're bringing home about $7,200 a month. We paid off all our credit cards last month, all of them. We're debt-free, except for the car, which will be paid off in a year. Our emergency fund has $6,000 in it. $6,000 sit there doing nothing exciting, just protecting us, just waiting in case we need it. We have health insurance, life insurance, and disability insurance. We review our coverage once a year, making sure we're protected as our circumstances change. We still budget carefully. We still say no to things sometimes. We're not rich, but we're stable. And stability, after you've lived without it, feels like wealth. Last week, Mrs. Chen, our landlord, told us she's selling our building. We could have panicked. Instead, we looked at our finances and realized we have enough for a deposit on a better apartment. Not a house yet, that's still a few years away, but a nice 2-bedroom with a washer-dryer hookup in a slightly better neighborhood. We're moving next month. Ava gets her own room. Malik gets his own room. Jason and I get our own space again. It feels like a miracle, but it's not. It's the result of 2 years of boring, disciplined, patient work. 2 years of making wise choices when we wanted to make easy ones. 2 years of protecting what we built instead of gambling it away. If you're watching this video, you probably clicked because something in that title resonated with you. Maybe your own children have stopped asking. Maybe you're lying awake at night wondering how you'll pay rent. Maybe your marriage is straining under financial pressure. Maybe you're considering a dangerous shortcut because you're just so tired of struggling. I want you to know something. I see you. I was you. I know that desperation. I know that shame. I know what it feels like when love becomes heavy and survival feels impossible. And I want you to know that there is a way forward. Not an easy way, not a quick way, but the real way. It starts with honesty. Stop hiding your struggles from the people who love you. Stop pretending you're fine when you're drowning. Ask for help from your partner, from your family, from the programs that exist specifically to provide help. It continues with protection. Don't wait until you're stable to get insurance. Get it now, while you can, because the next emergency is coming and you need to be ready for it. Health insurance, life insurance, disability insurance, these aren't luxuries. They're necessities. It requires discipline. Build an emergency fund even when it seems pointless. Even if it's only $10 a week, that money will save you someday. It demands patience. You won't fix everything in a month or even a year, but every month you'll be a little better than you were before. Progress compounds slowly, and most importantly, it needs wisdom. Not the wisdom of people who've never struggled, but the wisdom earned through suffering. The wisdom that says shortcuts usually lead to longer roads. The wisdom that says your dignity is worth protecting. The wisdom that says your family's stability matters more than your pride. Now, I want to ask you something, and I hope you'll answer honestly in the comments below. Have you experienced what I'm talking about? Have you seen your children learn to want less? Have you felt your relationships crack under financial pressure? Have you made it through to the other side, or are you still in the middle of the storm? Tell me your story. Not for my sake, but for the sake of the thousands of other people who will read these comments and realize they're not alone. Share what worked for you. Share what didn't. Share the lesson you learned the hard way so someone else might learn it the easy way. Because this isn't just my story, it's our story. It's the story of millions of families who love each other but don't know how to love each other when money disappears. And maybe, just maybe, by sharing honestly, we can help each other find wisdom in the struggle. That night 2 years ago, when Ava asked for art supplies and I couldn't give them to her, I felt like the worst mother in the world. I felt like I'd failed at the most basic task, providing for my child. But I was wrong. I wasn't failing. I was learning. I was learning that providing isn't just about money. It's about stability, protection, wisdom, and honest love. It's about building slowly instead of collapsing quickly. It's about making boring, responsible choices that don't make good stories, but make good lives. My children stopped asking because they saw us suffering. And that hurts worse than poverty. But we started answering. Not with money we didn't have, but with changes we could make. With protections we could build. With honesty we'd been avoiding. With discipline we needed. And eventually, slowly, so slowly we barely noticed it happening, our children started asking again because they saw us healing. They saw us building. They saw us choosing wisdom over despair. And that's the real answer to the question this story started with. What do you do when your kids stop asking? You show them through your actions and your choices and your recovery that it's safe to want things again, that the world hasn't destroyed you. Love is stronger than poverty when you protect it with wisdom. You show them that asking is okay, that need is human, that family means supporting each other through the hard times, not hiding the hard times until they destroy you, and you teach them the lessons you learned through suffering, about protection, about patience, about the difference between shortcuts and wisdom, so maybe, just maybe, they won't have to learn those lessons the hard way too. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to this channel. I share real stories about real families facing real struggles. Not fairy tales, not get-rich-quick schemes, just honest wisdom from people who've survived what you're going through. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what part of this story hit closest to home. I read every single comment, and your stories matter to me. And if you know someone who needs to hear someone who's struggling right now, someone who thinks they're alone in their financial stress, share this video with them. Let them know they're not alone. Let them know there's a path forward. Because there is. It's not easy. It's not quick. But it's real. And sometimes, the realest wisdom is also the simplest. Love is worth protecting. Family is worth fighting for. And your worth as a person has nothing to do with your bank account balance. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my story. And thank you for being part of this community where we support each other through the struggles that life throws at us. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and remember, you're not alone in this. With love and respect, Esther.